Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny show after Winnipeg Jets lost 3-0 to the Washington Capitals, who serve their revenge and serve it cold, avenging a 3-0 loss to the Jets not too long ago. That was a Sportsnet national game that we worked on at that time. I do remember watching that game, and we'd had conversations about Alexander Ovechkin, how ugly that was looking. Max Pacioretty, how off he was. I was surprised to look at that Washington Capitals team in that game and think this is the team that is making the strongest push out of the East to push its way, elbow its way into the playoff conversation. Clearly, that was not the Washington Capitals at their best in that game that the Jets beat them 3-0. I think today a much clearer indication of where they are and what makes them a good team. I actually think that game was a really good indication of where both these teams sit right now at this current moment in time. Jets, I don't think. Okay, I'd ask Ken the last podcast that we were on. What are the signs? What are the reasons to believe, if you're a Jets fan, based on how they have played basically for the second half of the year? I always use the Christmas break as a marker. What are the games? What are the signs that there's reason to believe in this team? I actually take a look at that game, and despite the loss, I know a lot of people, they're just going to see a loss. They're just going to see the fact they didn't score, and they're going to be like, well, this team, 3 straight losses, they're pretenders, they're frauds, all that kind of stuff, and kind of move on from it. This game to me is very clearly a good step in the right direction based on what we saw them come off of. First period, I thought was a really, really good period. And here, I know that the shot different. I know that the scoreboard said one thing. I know the shot clock said another thing. What I saw in that game was two teams that were very, very close in ability. And this, I think, is something that Jets fans should start getting used to. There was a time during this season that the Winnipeg Jets were dominant. And I think that's how a lot of people have defined the Jets in their mind ever since. And I just don't think, and I was saying that at the time, I don't think you can expect the Jets just to steamroll teams the way they were at the beginning of the year. Everyone who's waiting for that to come back, I think you should stop waiting or you're going to be disappointed, because I don't see that happening. The reason I don't see it happening is not because the Jets aren't capable of playing the way that they were at that time in December, but I do think that the rest of the league is taking a step forward. And I don't think it's a peak too early thing, but I do think that the Winnipeg Jets were playing basically at the top end of their capacity at that time. And I still think that the top end of that capacity is something that can make them a true contender in the playoffs. But the idea of the Jets just absolutely dominating teams and churning and spending shift after shift after shift in the other team's zone. Listen, you get examples of that now, but those examples, as much as there's a big faction of Jets fans that wanted to believe that beating the Anaheim Ducks 6-0 was a sign that they were the number one team in the league, or whatever, however bad they beat the Columbus Blue Jackets. Listen, the Colorado Avalanche beat the like, you have to put yourself in other people's perspective. The Colorado Avalanche just beat the Columbus Blue Jackets 6-1. And how many people are out there were like, oh, they beat the Columbus Blue Jackets 6-1, crown them the next Stanley Cup champs. Like, clearly those teams, especially after the trade deadline, there's a separation there. So that's not what you can expect. You may see it from the Jets now against those kind of teams. Like I said, the Jets aren't going to be playing those teams anymore. Not in the playoffs. They've got one more game against the Ottawa Senators. That level of competition is in the rearview mirror. The Jets made hay playing them. Good on them. It has them in a good spot right now, but that's done. The Jets need to get comfortable with what we saw here tonight. Okay, now this is a game that I don't think it's as simple as I saw some people online being like, "Oh, this is basically the Washington Capitals buried their chance, the Winnipeg Jets didn't." Blah blah. I don't see it as simple as that. There's times throughout this year that we've given the Jets credit for taking the game to another level in the third period and finding a way to make it work. Finding a way. I hate that term. Anyway, this is a night clearly where the Jets had the best second period, but there's no doubt about it. The Washington Capitals had the best third period, took it to another level in that period. A desperate team that needs the points more than the Winnipeg Jets do. They showed it there. But for me, what this comes down to, and a real differentiator, and the reason why I know there's a whole bunch of people who come in here, and I don't get it. Like, if you're here, you want analysis. And the people who come in here and try and silence the conversation by saying, everything's fine, everything's okay, everyone has an off game, other top teams lose games and all this kind of stuff. This, to me, is why it matters, because what you saw here tonight was a Winnipeg Jets team that did not come with the pre-required effort and compete level in the previous two games. So what you saw here tonight was the Winnipeg Jets coaching staff trying to spark a fire with this team by jumbling the lines, moving it around, trying to put like one person on each of those lines. Mason Appleton to the top line. The third line has its group there. You move Vladimir Mesnikov to the second line. The fourth line has some of those guys, but all these guys are the kind of guys that are trying to get those lines to play the game the right way. And I thought it worked, but what you're also trying to find in a tight game is chemistry that allows you to score goals. And so what we're seeing from the Winnipeg Jets right now, and what I think is the difference in that game, never mind one team burying their chances and the other team not burying their chances, is a team on the one side, the Washington Capitals, that have very much figured out what works for them, how to play, what they're supposed to look like, and they're doing that. And a Winnipeg Jets team that's trying to get back to that. And in the process, as they're trying to spark things by moving the lines around, they're also searching for chemistry in a game where there's really not room for them to be searching for chemistry. That's what I see when I look at that game. So I take an overarching look at this game. Their compete level was right out of the gate. Their structure was right. I thought they were creating good opportunities. There's a lot to really like about that game, especially because for the vast majority of that game, they play the game the right way. And it's one of those things where I don't care if you win or lose. If you play the game the right way over and over and over and over again, all those things are going to add up to you winning more games than you lose. And in the playoffs, when you win more games than you lose, you typically just keep going on. Right. So I see this as a positive step forward for the Winnipeg Jets, but I also see this as a function of where they've left themselves. All the folks out there who said them not showing up in games 14 left in the season, 13 left in the season, don't think it's a big deal. I think this game is a perfect example of why it's a big deal. Now, if this is the first step in the Winnipeg Jets starting to get back there, getting the effort right without having to police the effort by putting Mason Appleton on the first line and so on and so forth, then you can start getting, moving with the chemistry once you've got back to your structure. But that's what I see here right now. The difference in this game is one team knows exactly who it is at this stage. One team is still trying to figure it out. And the team that knows exactly who it is the team that won this game. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business to get his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny, everybody. Kenny, a lot of people are going to be happy to see that road trip over. Started so good, but in the end, they take 0.4% points percentage out of that road trip. For us, we are just, I've got a Holy shirt that I'm wearing here. I'm letting my standard slide like crazy. So it will be good to see the Jets at home against the Edmonton Oilers on
games in a row,
so that we can start getting the right kind of clothing on, not Holy t-shirts, but the sweet, sweet swag that we pick up down at Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. If you want to pick up some sweet swag, you know what to do. Head on down there, walk in, loudly proclaim that Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys. They will do you up right. Ken, What do you see in that
Good to
one?
see it. Actually, quite frankly, I think this was the best two periods that they played on the road trip, I would imagine. Second period was clearly the best period.
Ahead of the Rangers game.
The second period was the best period of the road trip, I think. I mean, they outshot their opponent 16-3, and two of the shots were in the last 90 seconds. Outside of the inability to convert those chances, Sean, I would say. Um, I don't know that. I mean, I think the Rangers game is the best game of the road trip because they elevated their play against a high level opponent. But in terms of structure and all the things that we've been calling for the last, when we had the inconsistency debate, that they did all of those things, but they only did them for 40 minutes. So I would say I agree with you. I'm not here to say everything's fine, but I am here to say that the second period is emblematic of how the Jets were playing earlier in the year. I'm not saying they should outshoot their opponent 16-3 every game. No, I do not think that that's the case. But when they play that style, they limit their opponents really well, and they take advantage of um, poor puck management, which has been kind of sort of their undoing against the Islanders and the Devils. They sort of imposed their will on the game, but they weren't able to do anything with it. So I think that if you're and you sort of heard it in the players after with both Mason Appleton and Dylan DeMello. I mean, as a player, they were kind of embarrassed might be too strong, but they weren't up to their standard. They said it was unacceptable. So then they ended up doing a better job in terms of effort and efficiency and everything except for scoring. So I would say that, again, we understand there's no moral victories in sports, but for a team that's needing to be better and more consistent, I would say it was an important step forward. We've been talking about it yesterday and earlier than that the Jets need to play more periods like the first and second than they did in the third. Again, their power play didn't get them a goal in the first two periods when they had opportunities, and the Capitals converted on their chance to get themselves the lead. I didn't like the second goal. I mean, I completely understand it's a bit of a weird play. There's definitely bad luck involved. It's so rare when two players hit the puck at the same time, and then yes, it also kind of caroms off Nate Schmidt. But that's a goal. That's a goal that in a one goal game it's leaky a little bit for me just because of where it went through. I understand we don't agree on this. And again, Connor Hellebuyck was not the reason the Jets lost today, but that second goal is a one that he stops a lot during the course of the year. You and I both agreed, Sean, as he wasn't busy in the first two periods, but I stand by what I said yesterday. I think that this was a game the Jets should have started Laurent Brossoit. I totally understand the mentality that in a game where the team was embarrassed, you want to start your number one guy. They've done it one other time this year, and we understood why. But to me, now you're almost don't you almost have to consider playing Brossoit either Tuesday or Thursday in one of those two games? Not because Hellebuyck lost, but because you changed the number and the volume. And the other thing too, he had 27 shots in two periods, so that was still a busy workload for him in the Islanders game, even though he didn't complete the game. So, anyways, goaltending was not what sunk the Jets. It was their inability to score. But I mean, we talk about this all the time, Sean. The best goalie tonight on the ice was Charlie Lindgren. So, in a
That's
game
Sean.
where
You know how there's
that's the Sean
Fenwick,
Reynolds
and
theory.
that's
So,
the Reynolds. That's the Reynolds stat. And everyone
yeah,
who's looking up
that's
all that kind of
why I
stuff.
complimented
Who
you.
is the
That's why I
better
just
goalie?
finished.
That guy.
That's why I just finished complimenting you on
It's
that.
really the in-depthness of that stat shows the
Incredible.
depth that exists in Renny, right? As shallow as a puddle, let me tell you. Anyway, go
And
on.
the other thing too, and folks, like Charlie Lindgren is a guy that is having a really good year as a guy who was a career backup essentially. Remember the days, Sean, where Charlie Lindgren was the future of the Canadians after Carey Price, right? I mean, this is a guy who kind of got bounced around a little bit, found himself a home, and folks should know if they don't already that Charlie Lindgren was a guy who was very high up on the Jets backup list, not this summer, but the previous summer when they ended up with David Riddick. He got himself a 2-year deal, and not only did he get a 2-year deal to be the backup to Darcy Kemper, he said, Darcy Kemper, thank you for paving the way, but it's my job now. And Charlie Lindgren is one of the big reasons that the Washington Capitals find themselves still in the playoff mix. So, anyways, that's enough about Lindgren, but just kind of a little bit of an interesting, piece of the puzzle that he was a guy I think the Jets had a lot of interest in bringing in here, and not to say that he definitely wouldn't have taken the job from Connor Hellebuyck, but I think he would have been a pretty stable solution last year as the backup. So, Anyways, goaltending didn't sink the Jets, but that was one of those times where a big save, to me, a big save would have been required there. It's a weird play on a lot of fronts, Sean, because Adam Lowry falls forward, it allows Connor McMichael to kind of, he essentially, what happens, Ovechkin gets his stick on the inside of Mike McMichael's, and McMichael is essentially shoots the blade of Ovechkin as Ovechkin is trying to take a wrist shot. So it causes a bit of a change up, and then it changes direction off Schmidt. But it's a deflator, Sean. It's just like, not as, I don't think it was as bad as yesterday's goal where the Jets won the draw and then gave up the goal. This is more bad luck than that. But it just, at the time of the game, the Jets had worked so hard. They were dominating their opponent. Yes, they give up a power play goal on an absolute, clap bomb from the middle of the circles, essentially, after a ridiculous play by TJ Oshie between the legs to get it to Max Pacioretty. But I mean, to me, the Jets were in a position to, it's still a one-shot game up until that point. So the fact that it went to 2-0 and then the Jets didn't really get a whole lot going after that, I thought that was, I don't think that they definitely didn't quit, and they certainly generated a few chances, but the game wasn't the same after that.
Well, I'm definitely going to say this. For the first two some odd periods, the winner, and we've talked about this in the past, the success of the Winnipeg Jets is quite often that whether they fall back in the score, they keep doing things the right way. So one
Yeah.
thing that the Jets weren't doing previously before this, in the previous two games, and I think you and I talked about this, we didn't talk about it on the podcast, but sometimes the Jets get into a place where they just don't want to dump the puck, and certain teams will create a scenario by which they're going to stand you up on the blue line, and the only way to get in is to dump the puck in the corner and then go chase it down. And the Jets weren't doing that. They were doing that for the first two periods in this game. So I do have to say, I don't like the way they responded to get scoring on, because essentially, to me, what happens after that, you saw it time and time. How many times did the Jets try to get it over Washington's line, over the blue line, and then turn the puck over? Why? Because they stopped dumping it in and they tried to stick handle it through, turn the puck over again and again and again. So I don't like that reaction. These are one of the things I'm talking about. I think the Jets take a step forward today, but those are one of the lessons now that the coaches could say, okay, I know these goals ended up in there. To your point, Ken, I know this second goal goes in and it's tough, and that makes us feel a little bit more pressure, especially because we've now lost 2 games and we don't want to lose 3. But we can't give up on a plan that was working to try something that clearly won't work after that. And you see this happen time and time again. When a team loses hope, they start one man banding it and trying to skate through the other team and getting it in. And that's what we saw from the Jets in the third period. So the Jets lost hope in this game. And that's why you didn't see much of a strong push down the stretch here in the third period. But that's something at least the coaches can go and say, guys, period 1, period 2, it worked. It was working. We abandoned it in the third, but we keep doing that, and we're going to eventually have some success. Again, is it concerning that they're at this stage of the season and they're having to learn these lessons and not know who they are, precisely like what we saw from the Washington Capitals right now? Yes, it's what I've been talking about. It's what a whole bunch of the folks out there seem to need to bury their head in the sand for. But the fact that they took a step forward here today tells me that the coaches can say, okay, now we've got some good tape on what works recently, and now we just have to start reinforcing the stuff that works, correcting the stuff that doesn't, and trying to get to a little bit of a better spot.
Yeah, and part of that, I thought that their forecheck was much better today, especially in the second period. They were all over Washington, and that was something that they had none of against the Islanders. So again, we talked about structure being a lot better. I think the other important thing for the Jets, even though the scoring and being shut out for the 6th time is still somewhat concerning, the fact that they were involved on the forecheck and being disruptive, as Dylan DeMello pointed out post-game, that to me was maybe an even more, well, no, the most important development is structural. The second most important thing is forecheck, because when the Jets aren't skating and when they can't get the forecheck going, then they have a big problem creating offense. And today they didn't have a problem creating offense; they had a problem finishing.
I actually love that comment that you made about them in the second period, because I think there were changes that Washington made in the third that entirely turned things around. This was a well-coached game by Washington. I think the third period is a great example. But I want to get the take on this game from our main man, Scott Billick, who's going to be popping into the show here. First time in a long time.
Suspension's been lifted. Suspension's been lifted.
Hey, I was down at the GM's meetings. I did a one-on-one. I don't know who saw it. I did a one-on-one with the commissioner. And after we were done, he said, "Can I take you aside for a second?" And he was like, "You get Scotty Billick back on that show, or there's going to be some problems here, Renny." And I was like, "How'd you know I was Renny?" And does he watch the show? We don't know, but we do know that he's been missing Scotty Billick. So I know a lot of you have as well. So let's take care of that right now and bring in Scotty B into the show. Here he comes, everybody. I just got to give a shout out to my cameraman, my main man, Colin Jensen, who edited that video, who has hit the panic button, by the way, fellas. He's been sending me texts. Colin has definitely hit the panic button, but I love that little video he put together. My favorite part is where Scotty's dancing and his head does a full 360. That's just absolute gold right there. Well done, Colin. We appreciate your contributions to the Kenny and Renny show. Some of you may have seen him at our live shows before because he pops in because, you know, there's free food for him there when he does. There's usually you can offer up free food. That's what's happening. Anyways, Scotty, haven't had you on for a while, so you can take this game solo, you can take what's led into it, you can take like a big picture view, small picture view. Where does this game leave the Winnipeg Jets?
Okay, so I was listening to the show because that's what I do. Even though I'm suspended, I still watch. So why are we
suspended? You wouldn't be on.
About, well, whatever. Why are we still talking about hope? Like, why are we talking about this team needs hope? Why are we talking about a goal in the second period deflating this team? You know, like the third period deflating this team. Like, I don't get it, guys. Like, I don't understand. There's 71 games in the books here, and we're talking about this team needs to find a hope again. It needs to not be like, where was this in the first 40 odd games of the year, where this team had no problem with hope? This team had no problem getting deflated. This team had no problem at all with a lot of things. And now, I'm not sorry to Kim. She can maybe close her ears, but I have nothing good to say about this game. I don't care that they played a little bit better in the first and a little bit better in the second. They still lost 3-0, Sean or Ken or whatever. Like and we're talking about this is a good building or this is a stepping off point for this team going against Edmonton's going to destroy this team if this team comes out and plays this way. Absolutely destroy it. And then Vegas is probably going to do the same. I'm not. You think, like, first of all, Washington is not on that level. So Washington played like garbage in that second period. The Jets allowed 3 shots, but they couldn't get a goal in the back of the net. I don't understand. I don't understand this team anymore. I've thought this team was different. I'm not so sure that it is anymore. They were 11-8-1 from March 1st last year. I wouldn't look this up. They're 7-6-0 right now from March 1st and counting. Like, I'm worried about this team because since that Boston game at the end of January, they're a 500 club. And they've played their worst hockey of the year. They've been shut out 5 times on this side of the 23-24 calendar right now. Like, what's happened? I don't. They've gotten away from their structure. We're talking about this team has a recent look at what they've done. Well, what about the first 40-odd games? This team knew how to play hockey then. And we've talked about this, Shawnee. And I agree with some of the things you said early on in the show that this team, I just wonder, like, I mean, I don't think this team has peaked necessarily, but teams certainly caught up to them. And like, this team was very good out of the gate. They knew their play, their do whatever. But the game plan or the scouting report is out on these Jets right now, and they're getting hammered. Like, going 2-3 on this road trip is unacceptable, I would say. I mean, that is a bad That's a bad road trip, especially after that Rangers game. And if you want to talk about them playing every second night and fatigue or whatever, welcome to the playoffs where you play every second night. And if you go 7 games, then you're still playing every second night going into the second round. Like, you got to learn to deal with fatigue too. And I know they're saying it after the game and how difficult. Like, I mean, DeMello didn't want to use it as an excuse, but sort of used it as an excuse, saying how difficult it is. I get that, but if it's difficult now, how much more difficult is it going to be in a month's time when the playoffs start? I don't have. I'm just not as rosy right now on this team. I don't think this game was a step forward at all. They got
You
shut
don't
out.
think today's game was better
No.
than yesterday's game against the Islanders, where they barely got in the offensive
It was
zone?
better, but why are we talking about this team getting better than getting absolutely embarrassed?
Well, because
yesterday?
it's Scott, it's where they are right now. Like, the
Yeah, I
fact of
know,
the matter is, it's
but
where they are. You can't
Brian, I
just
know,
like
but I'm
wave
just
the
saying we're
white
trying to, like,
flag and shut it
sugarcoat or
down. You have to take where they are.
well, that's
and
what
see
they
if
did
they
today
build.
in the
So
third
that
after getting a deflating goal. They waved the white flag. You
for
guys said
sure.
that before I came on.
Yes, yes.
Well, come on, that's what you said, Kenny.
I said they didn't
I
generate as much. I don't think
I
they waved the white flag
I
necessarily.
said that they fell out of their structure. I said that
For
they
sure.
started it. I mean, the Alex Ovechkin goal is essentially them falling out of their structure and taking chances up ice to try and get back into that game. To me, like, I know what you're saying, and they're coming off 3 straight losses, and it's really, really easy to go nuts on a team when they've pulled together a losing streak, right? But the 3 previous games to that, and listen, I'll be the first one to say I've been saying this for a long time.
Beat up on
I
Anaheim?
am on a totally different plane with Jets fans in those games where they kick the crud out of some team that is like 30th or 31st. And like, I've actually asked people if this is a market that like gets overzealous about stuff like that. Like, Jets fans get really excited when the Jets hang one on a bad team. And it seems to be like an example to them that everything is going to be going. So they get that 2 games in a row, but then they go and they do the Rangers things. But the fact of the matter is, Scotty, whether they won 6-0 or however they did against Anaheim and then Columbus after that, they did as much as they could have done in those games. Right. And then they go into the against the Rangers, and the Rangers were the hottest team in the NHL, and they played the perfect kind of game to shut them down. Now, have they been terrible since? They were terrible in the previous 2 games. I don't think they were terrible tonight. And listen, you said you've been watching the show. I've been watching the show. Everyone here in the chat room is going to know, and I know everyone thinks I'm a negative Nelly in this kind of stuff. I think these kind of results that you're seeing are like, go back and watch this show. And when I say those things where everyone thinks I'm super negative, I think it's a precursor to where they're going. And I think that there's a reason 2 shows ago I'm saying what I'm saying, and last show, and now they're in you can go back. I will put money on it. Go back and look at what I was saying about this team before they went on the 5-game losing streak.
I've been hearing you the whole time, Sean.
But the fact of the matter is, like, I don't look at this game. The first period, I think it's a tie. I think, like, maybe you can hand it to the Jets, although I actually do think the more dangerous scoring chance. I don't know what the stats say. Eye test
11-10
tells me that
in all chances. Jets,
in all chances
11-10
in the first
was 9-7 total, and 5-5,
in the first period.
11-9.
Okay,
no,
so
first period, 8-7 scoring chances, high danger, 5-3 Washington.
For Washington. Yeah. So that I was thinking that there may be a slight edge for the Capitals, but the second period is a period in which, like, that Josh Morrissey opportunity where he puts the decon and steps to the front and misses the top corner. Like, you listen. Coaches say this all the time. When you stop generating, that's the problem. Okay. Sure. But today they had 2 periods of really structurally sound hockey, and they generated opportunities for themselves. I take a look, and is it a problem that with 11 games now left in the season, they're having to entirely blend all their lines and put hard players on each line to try and get them going? Yes. It's a huge problem. That's a huge problem. We're not ignoring that, but I mean, I don't take this loss today as rip it up and tear it down because they've lost 3 straight. This is a step forward. Now, am I saying that step forward means they're going to take another one? They're going to be great in the playoffs, and then they're going to just roll through and steamroll? No one is saying that, but I don't look at this game and say this game is an example of this team being in terrible, terrible trouble.
I think this is an example of this team doing all the right things for a little bit, and then 1 goal or 2 goals just absolutely going out the window. And that's a problem, Sean, though. Like, that's a problem in itself.
Yes.
So we have Saturday as a problem, we have Thursday as a problem, we have Tuesday as a good example of where this team can be, right? And so I just don't. I mean, I'm just not as bullish on this game as you seem to be, and that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. But I just don't think this was a great game by a team. When you fail to score, it doesn't matter how well you played. Like,
it does. It does.
No, it doesn't.
Teams get goalied
that's
5
completely
times
wrong.
a year.
But
that's completely wrong.
No, Sean. But they're not putting together these performances consistently enough to
Agreed.
say this is a step forward.
Agreed, 100%.
So you can't say this is a step forward unless we talk about it on Tuesday. If they go out and they play a structurally sound game and beat the Edmonton Oilers 2-1 or something like that, but this game means nothing. This game only means that they showed up to this game after no showing yesterday and having a really bad outing against New Jersey. I
agree.
I think there's a big problem here. And they have a lot less runway than they used to have 2 months ago when this problem started to arise again. Well, I've written a lot of good things this year about this team. I believed in this team for a long time, but I'm not sure right now. Like, I'm having a tough time right now because what's different than last year? Like, in record, in the way that they're playing down the stretch.
Scotty, what's different is they're the best team in the NHL at 5-on-5. They were nowhere near that last year.
They weren't, but right now, since then, Kenny, since they started to slide in the end of January, they are not the best team 5-on-5.
Okay.
They're nowhere close to the best team 5-on-5.
Well, then how are they still first? I mean, yes, they've struggled in that area, but
because they found a way in a Carolina game. That's one example. To score 5 goals in quick succession. That's
all
great
right.
and everything. But somebody's saying I sound like I'm betrayed. I'm not betrayed. I'm just not sure I'm seeing. I don't know if I saw this team correctly. That's what I'm questioning. I'm questioning if I saw this team correctly. Because
this is the beauty is we're going to find out in the next. This is the hardest part of the schedule is over, so there'll be no other talk about that. They have a 5-game homestand against 3. There's 3 playoff teams in there.
No. The hardest part of the schedule is just.
I think you just misspoke.
In terms of schedule, 17 games in 31 days. That is the busiest part of the schedule. There's 3 more games this month.
No, it's all getting harder. It's all harder.
The harder games are coming, no doubt.
Yeah. But the schedule gets just as tough. I mean, yes, there'll be a little bit of reprieve. Like, there might be 2 games. As soon as the playoffs start, it's a game every second night unless they sweep a thing. Good F1 comment there. I enjoyed that. That made me smile. Anyways,
what I'm saying is
you have to read
the comment.
We're going to find out
right now. We're going to find out. We're going to find out on this homestand. We're going to find out on that
but come on, Ken.
road trip.
It can't always be.
It's not true. Sorry,
you have to.
We are going to find out.
I think.
Of course, we're going to find out. But our job here is to give people an idea of where things have been down.
I just think we can only kick the can down the road so far, Kenny. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to argue with you. Whatever. Even though I am. It's just you can only kick this can that we're going to find out what they're made of. They got 11 games left, and if they go 0-2 on Tuesday and Thursday against these teams, then there's 9 games left. And then what are we saying about this team, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. Can we kick the can? I don't know how much further we can kick the can down the road, right? Like, there are problems right now with this team that this team is stumbling into the playoffs again. I don't think we can deny that. Right?
Well,
I don't think there's anything that suggests that they're not stumbling into the playoffs right now.
If you've been watching the show, you know that I've been harping on this for a long time.
I know you have.
And to me, like, I don't disagree with any of that. And the Jets need to show me, and this is what I was saying last show, the Jets need to show me that they are back. Today didn't show me that, but it shows that a team is at least recognizing and trying to build on what it did last. But yeah, it's a problem that with 11 games, I said this, I think I think it's 20 games or 15 games that you need to start ramping it up, that you have to have a good idea of what your identity is,
now.
What makes you work. It's down to 11. They're leaving it to the wire. I think historically, if you take a look historically, there's not a lot of teams at this time of year that are still trying to figure it out and go the distance in the end. I even trotted out the examples going back to 2019. You're talking about hot teams at every stretch that have been hot at this point and are not. So yeah, it is most definitely concerning. The Jets are trying to figure it out. All those people out there who sound like they're confidently saying lots of time to figure it out, to me sound like nervous Nellies just cranking out the excuse machine like they're making sausage on the whole. But this is go on.
The Jets have problems they need to solve. The difference compared to previous is that they know what they are. In order for them to have success, they have the template. Previously, they were not committed to the template.
But Ken,
in the last 2 months, they have not been as committed to the template.
That's a long time.
I agree with you. That's what I'm saying.
That is a long time.
But that's not a sample size anymore, and that's the problem, right? Like, if it was a 5-game losing streak and it ended, sorry, Sean, but if it ended at the 5-game losing streak, right, then that's fine. But it hasn't. It's permeated through the last 2 months of their play, and that's a warning sign. To me, that's a red flag. That's all.
Oh, there's definitely warning signs.
The other part about this, I would say, is last year they had the template and
well, it's the same sort of thing.
No, they chose to ignore the template. That's different, don't you think? Hang on. They abandoned the template. They're not abandoning the template. They're not executing the template currently. I think there's a difference.
That's just another way to say that they've abandoned
Sean, no, hang on.
I think that's an okay comment.
This. Last year, the Jets chose to. They knew the template that got them success. Then they went back to snake charming hockey and were not committed.
Yeah,
that's not what's happened this year.
No,
what's happened this year is that their puck management has gotten worse in the last 2 months. They thought it was just
effort level.
At times, the effort level has not been as high the last while. No, agreed. Now, we've been praising everybody and their dog. You can't go from saying on Tuesday, Mark Scheifele 2018 is back, and now he's had 2 quiet games or 3 quiet games since. I mean, does that mean Mark Scheifele's not going to show up on game 1 of the playoffs? I don't think that that's the case. Do you? I think he'll be ready to go. I mean,
you're doing that thing where you do the extremes. It's not an extreme or an extreme and you lie somewhere in the middle.
Well,
you have to be able to like point out what you're seeing right now, not be like,
and I just pointed out what I saw right now. His last 3 games weren't as good.
Right.
But on Tuesday after the show, we said it looked like Mark Scheifele was going back to 2018 Mark. And in the last 3 games, he hasn't. For a month and a half, we praised Sean Monahan. I haven't noticed him as much the last couple of games. And Tyler Toffoli has not been as good on this road trip either as he was earlier on.
That's a great place to go. So before we do go there, we got to take care of some business. Ken, I want you to give Sweet Lou a shout out.
For folks who have realty needs they'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferland. Tell him Kenny and Renny sent you. 204-791-9971 or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferland.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferland, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of this podcast.
I hope I don't dislocate my shoulder by reaching for this one, but I will say that putting try-hards on every single line tonight did pay off in at least getting the Jets for 2 periods back to their structure before they abandoned it to start chasing this game. So that was a payoff move, I thought, by Scott Arniel in this situation. And if you're looking to pay off high-interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt-free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. I missed a couple of those shows, and I do remember the 2 games where Tyler Toffoli went off were games against, and I've been saying this, and some people don't like it, but the 2 games where they score 12 goals combined against 2 of the lower seeds in the NHL is where Tyler Toffoli had his most success. So as I said with those games, I need to see this team do these kind of things against good teams before I can lock down and say, well, it's a perfect fit or however it worked, any of those things. I guess I would just say, and I'll start with you, Ken, Sean Monahan, it's been here a decent amount of time now. Tyler Toffoli, newer type player. After those 2 games, it looked like it was just going to be an immediate click. Hasn't looked like that since. Has been a little bit lost out on the ice. I like that he goes to the net the way that he's been doing, although I question the Jets' ability to get the puck to that spot, which is maybe a little bit of a disconnect. But I wonder where you think these 2 players are in terms of being integrated into this team and ready to just not watch the core of this team move and become part of that core that moves it.
Yeah, I mean, I still think they're excellent additions and they've had a big impact on the Jets. I think they've been a little bit quiet in the last couple of games. Monahan, Sean, you and I have been talking about Monahan and his skating the last while. I haven't seen him as explosive in the last 2 or 3 games here. That's one thing that I've noticed. Toffoli, usually even in games where you don't see him getting, 5 or 6 shots on net, you see him involved. He's either making plays along the wall or he's holding on to pucks and making smart reads. I actually quite like the idea that they tried Tyler Toffoli with Mark Scheifele for a little bit of a stretch in the second period before they went back with Ehlers there. One thing that, Sean, you were calling for it. I have seen almost zero signs of chemistry between Sean Monahan and Kyle Connor, though I did like Kyle Connor's game a little bit better today. I thought his first 2 periods were very good, but his best chance outside of the power play came when he was on a blended line with Mark Scheifele and Nikolai Ehlers. So I think what I saw from Kyle Connor today, sorry to change the subject, and I'll go back to it in a second, 8 shots on net and 9 attempts for Kyle Connor. That's a big step forward for a guy who needed one. He had been too quiet lately. He was much better, and he deserved to be, for all the people saying, oh, Scott O'Neill couldn't wait to get Kyle Connor back with Mark Scheifele. He played his way back onto the line. And he had not generated a ton of chemistry with Monahan. So that was actually smart coaching. It wasn't reverting back to old habits. He went to a position where he was playing well, so he deserved it. In terms of Monahan, I think he's played, some of his best hockey with Nikolai Ehlers. So although I understand why Ehlers went up with Scheifele and Connor for the third, I think that Monahan's played his best with Ehlers, and I think that pairing probably needs a little bit more time together. And I think when Tyler Toffoli's played his best hockey, he's been with Nikolai Ehlers as well. So I think that's a line that I'd like to see back together personally. But at the same time, I also understand why the Jets have moved Alex Iafallo down in the lineup to get him away from Mark Scheifele. Even though he does a lot of the hard work, the heavy lifting, he hasn't been able to really generate a ton when he was with him. So there's a lot happening all at once. And I think that I think we'll see more from Toffoli and Monahan on this homestand. Although it wasn't an emotional time for Toffoli because he'd only been with the Devils for 7 months, he still was back on the road. He had to, pack another bag and whatever else. I think he's going to come back to Winnipeg more settled in, and I expect we'll see more of the Tyler Toffoli we saw when he was racking up points than what we saw in this last 3 games.
What do you take away from them, Scotty?
Take away from what? Sorry.
Monahan and
take away from the 2 players.
I haven't had really a problem with it. I think there was some chemistry between Monahan and Toffoli, and I agree. Like, I think they just need to go back to it. Like, I think that was working. But I'd say that, and then Monahan hasn't scored in 11 games now. Toffoli had his little thing there, and then it hasn't worked. The power play hasn't been as crisp as it was. Although I think, to Kenny's point, Kyle Connor had a great game, I thought. So 2 big saves that he gets stoned probably should have been goals. Lindgren was unbelievable today. You got to tip your cap to him as well. So, but I don't know. I just don't know if this team's there's just not a lot of chemistry right now in this team, right? Like, the fact that they're searching for lines or searching for drivers on lines right now, or trying to put the tryhards or whatever you want to call them on lines right now, kind of speaks to how poor the chemistry is right now, because they're just not getting anything going. I just wanted to go back to one thing. So just to clarify here, from January 21st to 26th, so the Jets have allowed 73 goals since then. In the first 44 games, they only allowed 99. They were plus 46 in terms of goal differential in the first 44 games. Since then, 0. So it's 73 goals for, 73 goals against.
Not good enough.
No, not even close. And that's what I'm saying. Not even close. But, so this is the thing. Like, the Jets are searching for a lot of things right now, aren't they? Like, they're searching for line chemistry. They're searching for goal scorers. They're searching for better goaltending from their starting goaltender, even though I don't blame a lot of it on Connor Hellebuck because, yesterday was a complete mercy pull. They just weren't playing in front of him. The Ovi goal, the second goal from Ovi today, was an absolute breakdown defensively, but you sort of understand it because they are trying to push the other way. But again, this team was really good at scoring goals while still playing sound defensive hockey before. So that's kind of gone away. Like, I thought that third goal was very indicative of how they've played as of late. Like, if you're trying they can't play their defensive brand of hockey and score right now. They're getting away defensively from their game to try and score goals, and that reminds me a lot of years gone past with this team. So, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't see Tyler Toffoli and Sean Monahan as the problem with this team. It's a broader problem with this team.
For sure,
they're just not playing well right now, and that affects everybody. And do you need Tyler Toffoli or Sean Monahan to step up? Yes. You also need Kyle Connor to step up. You need Mark Scheifele to step up more than one game every few, right? Josh Morrissey needs to, probably step up a little. Neil Pionk, I'm surprised he didn't sit today, to be honest with you. But this goes back to the whole reason why Connor Hellebuyck started today as well. This was a redemption game for the team. I just don't think they really redeemed themselves. But, I mean, that's, we've already went over that. So, yeah, it's a tough time right now. And I'm not trying to be – well, it's not that I'm trying to be negative or positive. It's just it is negative right now. That's the way it is when you've lost 3 straight. You got embarrassed and run out of the building yesterday, and you get shut out again in a response game where you think you played a little bit better, but you still have nothing to show for it. It's just
again, last thing on Monahan, he did have one of the best chances of the game, Sean, when the play you talked about it. Really smart play by Josh Morrissey off the boards, backhand play. Monahan rips it off the pipe, but
yeah, it was a good game.
Outside of that, I didn't see him creating the same type of offense that we've been seeing lately. But like I said, I expect him to be better when the team returns home. But it's time for all of the Jets stars to step up this homestand. Yeah. They're playing 3 teams that could be their opponents at some point, and they could be their opponents sooner than later if they don't find a way to figure it out in the last 11 regular season games here.
Okay, so this is, in my mind, a systematic issue, and JKN touches on part of this. He says, Chevy did his part to bring in the players they needed to improve their chances. It's mysterious what has happened on this road trip. Effort was better today, but not acceptable. Helly needs to sit. There's a lot to unpack in what they're saying here, but this, to me, is like where I think a lot of people watching from the outside are getting this wrong, where JKN says, it's mysterious what's happened on this road trip. We've said this before. Like, this is that, like, before they went and played the Rangers, they were not beating good teams. So the Winnipeg Jets, I said this on the show last time, the Winnipeg Jets schedule that has been insanely heavy, one of the best schedules in the NHL since Christmas, because they've been playing teams like the Chicago Blackhawks 3 times, the Ducks 3 times, the Columbus Blue Jackets twice, like so on and so forth. There was one stretch of hockey they played 10 games, and 7 of those games were against the bottom 6 teams in the NHL. So those who think that this just hit right now have not been paying attention. They haven't been listening to the show. The issue with the Jets has been for a long time now. Here's the middle of the NHL. Here's the upper echelon. Here's the lower echelon. The Winnipeg Jets have been feasting on the lower echelon, and they've been getting their butts kicked by the upper echelon. That's the issue. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with what we've seen here today. Clearly, the last 2 games are an example of where the Winnipeg Jets could be. It's an example of a lack of effort and them not doing their stuff. So every time we bring this up, and I talk about this on this show, again, there will be a whole bunch of people in the chat room. There's a bunch of you in there today who are going in and being like, it's no big deal. They got time to figure it out. Every good team loses games, blah, blah, blah. This is why it's a problem to stray from what you do best and not do your best game, especially if you're the Winnipeg Jets, because the Winnipeg Jets have no history. Go back and look at this team since 2011. There is no history of this team showing the ability to flip the switch. There's a couple teams out there that have shown this before. The Winnipeg Jets have never been the team that says, okay, now it's time to go, flip the switch, and there you go. They don't do it. It's not something that's in their DNA. They've never figured it out. So why you are so confident that they're going to figure it out now, I have no idea. But this is why it matters. Last year, everyone was saying the Jets needed to sell the farm to add at the trade deadline. I said no. The reason I said no was because I thought it's important for the team to show that you deserve to mortgage the future for the present that exists. The present in which you are playing is how you show them that it's worth going forward. They didn't do that last year, so they didn't make big moves. That has an effect. Well, following that, following the trade deadline and the All-Star game and all those things. The reason why it's important is when you are a contender who put yourself in a situation where you are going to make the playoffs. Winnipeg Jets, it was never in doubt if they were going to make the playoffs. But if you stray from your game and you stop playing the way you know how to play to the point that you maybe forget or it's hard to get back to where you were, then when you're adding new players into the lineup like Tyler Toffoli or Sean Monahan or even Gabe Vilardi, who's been in and out of the lineup with injury, the problem with that is if you don't set down a structure that there are very defined roles that guys can easily come in and fill a role, now you've got a problem. And so what's happening right now is Sean Monahan and Tyler Toffoli are trying to fit into a team that doesn't know who it is or who goes with who. You want an example? How about the line blender that's been on the last little while? The Winnipeg Jets coaches don't know what's working and how to get them going. So they're trying a whole bunch of things. And in that chaos, Tyler Toffoli and Sean Monahan are trying to figure out how to fit in to be Winnipeg Jets that pull on the rope, except every time they grab onto the rope, the coach is saying, no, step away from there and go grab the rope over there. Okay, no, now come back here and do it over here. You need to be a balanced, consistent team for this exact reason. So someone like Tyler Toffoli can come in, fit in well, and be the difference maker that you want him to be. That's why this is important. So again, all the people who are like, forget about it, like to Scotty's comment, kick the can down the road and all that kind of stuff. It's not an option for teams who want to gel and to make it as easy as possible on the new people coming in. So is this all on Tyler Toffoli and Sean Monahan? No, they look like indecisive players out there to me right now. And I think there's a lot of Jets players that look like indecisive. But when you come into a team and you aren't the identity, you are trying to fit the identity. If you don't know what the identity is, it becomes very, very difficult to fill that role. And I sound like I think I
mic
cut
drop.
That
there you go.
Conversation off right there. There we go.
Sound like you need to drop a wake up in there somewhere with Christine wake up.
I think I needed to wake you two up after that to give some kind of retort to it. I was expecting a retort, and never happened. So this,
I agree with you, Sean.
Let's consider this the Pristine Roofing wake up call, and that means it's time to give North End Rick the wake up call at 1-204-981-6289 or call Pristine Roofing at 1-204-237-7663. Have Rick down. He'll tell you everything you need to know about your roofing, siding, exterior needs. The season has already started, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing to wait for, nor is it time to wait if you know someone in your life who could use a brand new roof, may not be in a situation financially to pull it off. That's okay, because the Pay It Forward program by Pristine Roofing is here to pick someone that they want to give a brand new roof to for free. So if there's anyone in your life who fits the description of someone who may not be able to financially get that work done, but could sure use that work getting done, let North End Rick, let Pristine Roofing know about it. And it could be that person that you nominate that ends up with that extremely generous gift by Pristine Roofing. We probably got to get right into it, guys. Ken, do you have a Johnson Group got you covered? Actually, no. Guests first. Scott, you got a Johnson Group got you covered play of the game?
Oh, I mean, Charlie Lindgren's whole game. But I mean, I thought he was brilliant for them the whole game. But I mean, I got to save a couple of those saves for the save of the game, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was Charlie Lindgren early on. That save on, yeah, I'll go with this. The save on Mason Appleton early in that first period, because I think there was a chance here for the Jets. I think that for a team that was going to deflate, it was if the Jets would have scored first. I think Washington just kind of goes off into the rest of the day, and that's it. I don't think they had a comeback in them if that was the case. And I thought Charlie Lindgren early on, yeah, I'm going with Charlie Lindgren as my guy of the gotcha covered game, whatever. Yeah.
Ken,
Sean,
what do you got?
Sent one to me that we agree on, so I don't want to steal the thunder. You share it.
Yeah, okay. About 16 minutes left. At the 16-minute-ish point, 4 minutes gone in the second period. There's a play that is actually a 2-on-1 that is an extremely dangerous play, likely to end up in a breakaway. And Josh Morrissey, just the positioning on that play, traps the guy on the boards. And I talked about this with the Tyler Toffoli goal that Mark Scheifele shot it off of his skates. This is obviously a skills coach doing great work with the Winnipeg Jets because not the same scenario, in a defensive scenario, Josh Morrissey traps the player on the boards by stacking his two skates toe to heel, one on top of the other, and his stick on the top of the front toe to create essentially a 3-foot fence that puck cannot get through. And he forces the turnover and keeps it the other way in a period where the Jets, had they been able to pop a couple, could have been maybe a bit of a different game. But someone want to get this comment off of here? There we go. Anyway, I think that's like someone had said it earlier, and I think I had it here. I wanted to save it and pop it out. But Josh Morrissey, I thought, here we go. Or no, that's not it. I disagree with that. Josh Morrissey, I thought, had a really, really good game here tonight. To me, for the first two periods, I thought everyone on both teams was really playing an elevated game. And to me, the guy who stood out beyond everyone was Josh Morrissey, because he was up the ice, he was down the ice. Like, it felt like he was teleporting from one spot to the next, which is just obviously great hockey IQ to be able to get to those spots without people expecting you to get there. Takes speed, takes smarts, takes anticipation. He was showing all that tonight. And that play is one of those plays that the hockey nerd in me, who likes those tiny little bits of the game that make really big impacts, I thought that was one of those. That's my Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? You need to look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. That is the Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. Moving on, Scotty, do you have a keg save of the game?
Yeah,
you may have just used it all up on your Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game.
It's either
Rusty.
To me, it's either the one.
I'm gonna have to call Gary Bettman and say he's rusty, Gary. I don't know why you forced me into this.
Rusty. I mean, hey, I came in with the heat at the start, but whatever.
You did.
You had a good first period.
Don't. Hey, second. Keep it going.
Don't forget the sponsored segments. Don't forget how the sponsored segments work.
Right?
Don't be the Jets in the third period. This is your third period, Scotty. If you're going to criticize it, you better lead the way. Come on.
To me, it's the one on Mason Appleton, and I know, like, the one on Kyle Connor is nicer in terms of how he gets across further. But that one on Mason Appleton scores that goal in the first period. I think the Jets are off to the races. Like, I really do. And that keeps them in that game, because it was a tight, contested first period. But I think, and you saw how well the Jets played in the second. I think if they would have scored that goal in the first period, the Jets would probably came out on top in this game. Could have been 3-0, in the favor of the Jets. But that's a huge save on a cross ice 2-on-1. That Washington gave up, and it went from there. So I really like that one, and somebody else can take the Kyle Connor one.
What do you got? No,
Kevin? Best chance is the save on Appleton in the first that set the tone for the entire game.
All right. I'm not going to argue it, which means that is a clean sweep of the keg save of the game. Not by the Jets, by Charlie Lindgren in this case. But it doesn't matter what we think. It matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag, the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate to any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last, ladies and gentlemen. And the winner from our last show, I saw her in the chat room here, Steph Ballingal.
Well done.
That's you. You know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Give me your full name. Give me your email, and I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate, usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And that brings us to the Lampy, the TCB Lamplighter. Guys, have you noticed on the TSN broadcast that they're advertising the Lampy on the boards and behind the goals?
I saw that today. That was the first time I saw that today.
I was wondering why I've been so thirsty and day drinking the way I've been doing here.
Right.
You know what I mean? The 12 o'clock and I'm seeing Lampy, and all of a sudden I'm like drinking. I look down, it's in my hand. I'm drinking it. It's some kind of subversive advertising. Good, smart work by the people at TCB. What do you got for the Lampy there, Scott?
I'm not going to say the second goal because I feel like that's just trolling, right? I like the second Ovechkin goal because of the way that the play is made. Nice little tic-tac-toe. Ovechkin blows in behind the defense and gets a nice one. Nice deke. You can easily go with the Carlson blast from the point, but I'll take the Ovechkin goal. leave the Karlsson one for somebody else, unless you're all going to agree with me this time again.
Yeah.
No, Karlsson Clap City, just because of the way it was set up by TJ Oshie, and I personally didn't love the way that. And again, I understand the penalty kill is a 4-man unit. I didn't love the way that Neil Pionk played the power play goal. There was kind of nobody in his vicinity, and it caused Appleton to come down to the slot, and then Oshie makes the great between the legs play to Pacioretty, and that sort of.
It just contracted almost.
There were
right?
4 guys all down in the slot, but
Yeah.
none of them had Karlsson, and Karlsson is in the, I understand, again, your idea is not to have a guy wind up for a slap shot just beyond the hash marks, but it sort of was a bit of a breakdown, and it caused a big problem. But again, for a team that had just been outshot 16-3 in the second period and had been thoroughly outplayed, the fact that they took advantage of, kind of a careless penalty by Mark Scheifele, it's a nothing burger. There's nothing happening. There's no need to two-hand the guy in the shin pads at that situation.
You didn't think that was soft, though? That was a bit of a soft call. Like,
he wound up with 2 hands.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
I didn't like the play.
One, but yeah,
sure. I mean, that can be ignored, but I think that Mark's reputation with officials got him in trouble on that play, and it cost the Jets a goal in a game where they were going to the second period 0-0 in complete domination of the game, and they gave up a goal in the first minute and change. So that's a play that it's a play that should not be made in that situation by one of the best players on the ice. I agree that it's a play that can get ignored, definitely, but it changed the game. Like, there's no way to argue it changed the game. So that's something that Mark needs to make a wiser decision there. And if he wants to slash him, then he can't wind up the way that he did.
Just before I go with my Lampy here, waiters, come on, bud, read the room here. Like, know where you are. If you're not a fan of my work, you can always go and you can hang out at the TSN-led post-game podcast and spend your time there. If you want to make comments like this, and come into my living room and say
that's wake up territory, waiters. Come on, man.
I try and treat everyone really respectfully when we see each other. This strikes me as disrespect. Sorry, bud. I get what you're doing here, but I'm not okay with it. My Lampy of the game, I think, is that Ovechkin goal, the third one of the game there. This is, again, like I said, it's an example of a Jets breakdown because they're falling out of structure to try and score their way back into this game. I'll use this as an opportunity to quickly go to Helly because I never talked about Helly earlier on when you were saying that. I don't feel as harshly as you do about Hellebuck's second goal there. To me, that's really tough to read because it's 2 sticks shooting 1 shot. Goaltenders, it's difficult to like pick up where the shot is going until you're seeing it come off of a stick. And not only is that tough to read, and I've said this before, I'll explain that quickly because I took this in university, but the way that you fake someone out is you get a brain thinking one thing. There's like once the brain is convinced of something, it takes a certain amount of time for the brain to complete that task. So when you deke a goaltender and he starts moving, the brain can't just stop that immediately. There's a time frame where the brain has to complete that task. So what's happening in that scenario at the brain level of Connor Hellebuck as he's trying to read what is happening with that puck as it comes off 2 different sticks, and in that moment it redirects off another player's stick, so he's just catching up to the first read when it's already redirected and he's already started to make that move when the redirection happens. That's a tricky one. That's a one where your brain just cannot really react to that. So I know, Ken, that you're saying, close up the wickets and all those kind of things. I just think that is a confusion created by 2 sticks that causes a reaction from the goaltender that really, I don't think you can train this out of a goaltender. This is just a brain reacting to the confusion in that situation. So I don't hold Hellebuck responsible for that one. I don't hold him responsible for the first one. Jets penalty kill was great until they let like that major grade A goal and shot in that situation. Which like John Carlson is a guy, if you give him that shot there, he's probably going to put it in the perfect spot, and he put it in the absolutely perfect spot. So I take a look at this game, and there's definitely puck luck involved in the second goal. The first goal is a breakdown at the end of really, really great played hockey. The third one is a breakdown in a team trying to cheat their way back into the game. So while I don't take a look at Connor Hellebuyck and say like he let the team down in this game, do I think that the second goal was a backbreaker? For sure. It's a little bit of puck luck, though, but you got to be able to ride with puck luck, right? The Winnipeg Jets, I've said this before. How many times have I said in this podcast? The hockey gods love the Winnipeg Jets. They've had a lot of bounces go their way this year. It's how you respond to those things. Jets didn't respond well to it. So as much as you want to try and say, well, the first goal is a slight little bit of a breakdown. The second one's lucky. The third one is because they're pushing. This is actually a 1-0 game. The Jets get a lucky bounce. It goes a different way. No, they didn't respond well. Because of that, they don't deserve this game. They didn't make the push in the third where the other team did and differentiated the game. Connor Hellebuyck is clearly on the Reynolds stat, the Corsi, the Fenwick, and the Reynolds. He was the second best goaltender in this game. And I mean, we did have a good conversation yesterday, Ken, about where we would have gone. Both of us would have liked to have seen Laurent Brossoit in this game. I don't, again, I'll end with this before anyone can say what they want to say before it's said and done. I don't dislike the idea of trying to push and prod Connor Hellebuyck by giving a goaltender, his backup goaltender, who has earned every second of ice time he's had this year, an opportunity to try and have an effect on the team. I don't think it's a problem. I think, as I've said this before, the numbers typically show that Connor Hellebuyck's best times are during the front end of the season and he tails off towards the end. The numbers tell us that's happening right now. I don't have any issue with trying to motivate him by giving a goaltender who's earned time in the crease, more time in the crease. And I also don't dislike the idea of giving Laurent Brossoit, a guy who has done great things for this team, the ability to be the hero and kind of turn things around down the stretch here when the Jets, everyone's talking about the Jets need to turn things on and start building some momentum. If Laurent Brossoit can get in the net and help you do that for 2 or 3, 4 games down the stretch here, I don't see why you wouldn't do that. History tells us that's not going to happen, though.
Anyway, sorry, just to confirm before you go to Lampy, I don't think that Connor Hellebuyck did anything wrong technically on the goal. I just think that that's a goal you can't allow at that scenario, given the circumstances and how wobbly the team had been when they were playing well. Like I said, I agree it's bad luck, but I just think that that's something. I mean, yes, bad luck, 2 sticks and another stick off their own team for sure. It just is something that, I mean, Connor Hellebuyck is an elite goalie. On another day, it hits him and doesn't go in, and kind of sort of just trickled through him. Anything anyone needs to say before it's sorry, you got to hand out the Lampy here.
Oh, I haven't finished the Lampy.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Forgot the Lampy. Lampy, winner.
Sorry,
from our
take
last
that down
show.
too, that comment. I don't know where it is.
1 second. Here we go. Okay, that is our hashtag lamplighter. TCB lamplighter. Doesn't matter what we think, matters what you think. Share with us your lamplighter of the game. You're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of lamplighter amber ale, brought to you by our good friends at the Trans-Canada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny, and in this case, Scotty, to gift you your own, you can head on down to Trans-Canada Brewing Company. Join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston, where you can buy all the lampies that you want. You can get it on tap. Great beers on tap. Great beers in their store. Great pizza. Great food. Great atmosphere. Great people, which you will know if you're coming down and joining us on April 6th, where we will have our last live K&R event. Hoping to see a lot of you down there. We know we will because we sold out the building. And that means the next event that you can take part in will be the Kenny and Renny year-ender, where we send her. That will be to be determined, TBD, depending on how the Winnipeg Jets close out this season. Lots to look at. 11 games left as we see how they close out this season and head into the playoffs. A lot of work to do, clearly, from where they are right now. We will be here putting in the work to keep a hold of it that entire time. Before you jump in here, Ken, I'm just going to say, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, please appreciate the contributions by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, the Johnston Group, the Keg, and Trans-Canada Brewing Company. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Ken has something to say before we go out here.
Happy belated 50th to Marshall yesterday. Big day for him. Big 5-0.
Also, happy early birthday to Ken Weeb.
Thanks, Scotty. Thank you, Rob Mahoney. Yeah, and thank you a few other folks who have. 49, big 4-9er tomorrow. That's right.
It's the big 4-9.
Tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, buddy.
Do I have to
49
get you
looking better
something?
than ever.
You don't have to get me anything.
I don't have to get
except
you anything.
just don't
My
wear that
friendship?
hat.
Is my
again.
friendship good enough?
Yeah,
Oh, and
friendship-
I'd meant to do
good
this.
job.
Let's
Good
do it.
job.
Let's do it before
Go
we go.
for it.
I know it's
Yep.
a faux pas, but let's hear the music before we shut it down here. Let's make this a late breaking version. Kenny, Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. That's it for us, folks. All three of us going to be in a much more presentable manner when you see us next on Tuesday when we're wearing our Vittorio Rossi, looking like $1 million. It's going to be great. Big game. Big game. Jets against the Oilers. Always a great showdown between these two teams. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to breaking it down with all of you folks. We will see you next time.
Well,